Good afternoon and welcome to another Ask Me Anything session with Uniform Recruitment with the OPP. I'm Sergeant Nicholas Keys. I'm a senior recruiter with the OPP and I'm in East Region based out of Smiths Falls, Ontario. Hello to everyone that's just joining and waving to us. We're going to get started here. For anyone that's new to this format, we're going to answer your questions as best we can in the comments. Go ahead and hit us with all your burning questions about uniform recruitment, about policing, and we'll do our best to answer them. So I'll tell you a bit about myself as we get started here. I've been with the OPP for 15 years now. I started as a civilian at General Headquarters, just on contract, doing some filing for drug enforcement until the fateful day when the sergeant that I was working for came to me and asked me why I was doing his filing and why did I just not get off my butt and apply. And that was the first time anyone had ever even suggested to me that that was even a possibility for me. So the seed was planted from that point on. And and here we are today. So I've had a lot of great postings throughout my career. I loved my time on the road in a Aurelia detachment. I spent some time running the provincial auxiliary program as the provincial coordinator at headquarters. So that was a lot of fun and a really great program for those of you who are maybe looking to apply in the future but aren't feeling ready yet and want some more experience. Definitely check out the auxiliary program. And from there, I was a communications sergeant at the comm center for a few years, and now I'm here in uniform recruitment. And so it looks like we got a good group of folks coming on and saying hello. And I'll turn it over to Sergeant Woodbury.
Hi,
How are you,
everyone.
Kelly?
Excellent. Yeah, my name's Kelly Woodbury, and I'm also Sergeant with Recruitment. I'm in my 19th year with the OPP, and I've spent it all in the Northeast region. So that's my little props to the Northeast. Just like Sergeant Keys, I've had my own path. I started up north with a duration posting. I went to Chapleau. That was quite a ways out of my comfort zone, and it was an adventure, but I'm glad that that's where my career started. From Chapleau, I did 5 years and came down to North Bay, where I also worked on the road until about my 10th year when I went into our crime unit. So investigating major crimes. I did that for about 7 years. Everything from your more intense sexual assaults, homicides, missing persons, things of that nature. And then this year decided to look into something different and into recruitment. So I like to highlight that I'm on to my third career within the OPP. So keeping my same pension, same employer, good paycheck, but I've been able to switch drastically what I'm doing in the organization 3 times already. And I'm sure in another 7 years or less, I'll get another itch to switch. So just, some of those highlights. Right now, I'm promoting recruitment in the Northeast region. I see there's some experienced officer questions in there. That's something right up our alley as well. So I think we had a couple topics to discuss, and we can get into some questions. Did you want to go over a couple things first, Sergeant Keys?
Yeah, sure. And might I say, itch to switch. I like it. That's fun. We were. It's old news, but I'll throw it out there again in case you were on vacation when this announcement came out. But no more tuition at OPC. So, and I'm sure all you folks are all over that. But I like to highlight that because that's an amazing announcement, getting rid of some barriers and some financial burden. Also, we were going to just chat a little bit about just one of the things, like once you, I know you're all at various stages of applying or looking to apply or considering it or just kind of curious. But we were going to chat a little bit about attention to detail because we deal with a lot of new recruits as well as experienced police officers. And no matter who it is, we get a lot of paperwork that comes in that's we've got a lot of paperwork that shows a lack of attention to detail at times. And the reason why we're mentioning it is because it slows down your process, and it also it detracts from all the great stuff that's in your application. So as I told my daughter while we were working on, she was working on and holding me hostage, reading her essay last night for high school, I was like, you got to put capitals on these names and these sentences, because people are going to see these little mistakes, and that's all they're going to see, and they're going to miss all your great work. So that's one thing that that we were really we were talking about beforehand. We're like, what's something that would be great to get out there, because as Sergeant Woodbury has experienced the same, a lot of silly little mistakes that really don't need to happen if you just slow it down, read things over several times before sending them off, because obviously you want to put your best foot forward, and you're joining an organization where you'll be expected to be submitting documents for court. Little mistakes can affect your credibility, and they can also affect the outcome for a victim eventually down the road, right? So for some of these big investigations that Sergeant Woodbury was talking about that she's been involved with, I'm sure Kelly, attention to detail is huge, because little mistakes could cost a case at times.
Absolutely. And often you may not think of it, but in policing, sometimes you only have one chance to make things correct. You only get one chance on the stand to be prepared and know your testimony inside and out. When you're preparing documents and you submit them, you definitely need to have them 100% proofread. Find a friend who can look over them. Sometimes when you have those documents and you've been working on them for weeks, you miss some of your own mistakes because you're just so comfortable with your material. So have someone else look it over, have them look over the instructions. I see a lot that people are misreading instructions. So it really speaks to your attention to detail. So that part, is a huge piece for me, and it's going to put your best foot forward. So have that attention to detail. One question that I seen pop up quickly, I'll just mention it right now. For an EPO question, it's experienced police officers. Do you still administer the Sigma test, or has that been removed? We do still do the Sigma. All psych gets redone regardless of where you come from or what service. That was an easy question to answer.
Okay. There's another one here. Sorry, I lost it. In the meantime, while I'm looking for this, we're going to be doing a number of upcoming outreach events, both virtual and in person. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the careers page on the OPP website, opp.ca/careers. And there's an upcoming events page where I'm sure you may have gotten this link from it. But if you haven't checked out the rest of them, there's a bunch of events coming up. There's one tonight in Aurelia at GHQ at 6 p.m. We're going to have a constable information session. June 3rd in Kingsville at the Arena Complex, there's at 3 p.m. There's going to be another constable info session. We've got two on June 5th, one in Sturgeon Falls and one in Fort Francis at the Rainy River Detachment. And then here in Smiths Falls on June 6th, we're going to have another info session at noon at East Region headquarters here. So make sure you keep checking out those events pages, and make sure you check out one of these events and come out and say hi and meet one of our recruiters. And you'll pick up different, even if you've already been to an event or participated in one of these, you get different information every time, because it's just so vast, the amount of information to know, and little pointers and things and different perspectives from different recruiters. So please come out and join us and keep participating in these. And you'd think I would be able to read questions while I was saying all that? No, not a chance. Where did we leave off here?
So there was one about a pin test.
Yeah, I know. I saw. That's why I was trying to find that one. I believe the question was, okay, if it's a requirement. And yeah, so you do need to be able to demonstrate that you can achieve a passing grade on the PIN test.
Yeah, so that's
That is definitely
75%. And where the requirements and expectations come up is that at OPC, the prep is the requirement. When you do your fitness pin the first week at the provincial academy, it is an expectation that first week, but we do expect that you'll be, if you struggle in any way, that you'll be able to bring that up to the 75%.
And I have Derek saying that he's applied for the REACH program and looking to know how long to hear back. So I know that the applications just closed just a couple days back for the REACH program, which is like a enhanced mentoring program for those that aren't aware. If you're curious, go check it out on the page. And you're looking at about 2 weeks to hear back. And like I said, it just closed a couple days ago. So in about 2 weeks, you should know whether or not you were successful in getting into that program.
Yeah. There's a question about special constable positions and wondering about some details of those jobs in the hiring process. So I can speak to it in general. There's more than one position for which special constables fulfill a role. Some of those are in our courts. They perform court officer duties. So that's everything from organizing crown briefs after somebody has been charged. A brief is brought before the courts. So that special constable can be responsible for swearing to informations, attending court appearances, liaising between the crown and the police, and those types of things. So those positions are dependent and on each detachment's requirements. So not necessarily does every detachment across the province have or require special constables at this point. But we also have special constables, and those positions can be in our digital forensics areas. We have analysts who work on the downloads of cell phones and computers and the like, and that's a completely different role. And the reason that we have those positions become a special constable is so that when an officer writes a warrant to have a phone examined, it's done so by an extension of the OPP being a provincial special constable. Otherwise, we'd have to write a specific order for assistance, and that's getting really technical, but I just happen to know that side of the house. So that's another role. Our specials are also in offender transport. So it's hard to speak to exactly what the process is, because the jobs for special constables vary so much. But those are posted positions. Offender transport is often hiring, but again, these positions are part of the greater OPS. So we all belong to the Ontario Public Service. Hope that kind of gives a little bit of insight.
And I see someone else asking, if someone isn't successful, what do you do from a recruiting perspective, and how do you improve? And so this is always a bit of a sticky spot, because obviously applicants put their all into these applications, and there's a lot riding on it, your future career goals, and some people have based their education and geared their lives towards this application. So we understand that you want as much feedback as possible. And it's always been tricky because we're not able to provide a lot of feedback on where exactly you've gone wrong, or where you've fallen short in your application. But one thing that we really encourage is for folks to really take a good look at themselves, and usually you can determine that yourself. And so before you apply, we have a self questionnaire that you can go through, and you can answer honestly all these areas of assessment, whether it's motivation, leadership, education, fitness, and you can list where you're at with all of these things, and it becomes really obvious which buckets are more full than others and where you need to beef it up. And we always encourage that on the front end. But I think, and I'm just sort of thinking out loud, but I think that may be a good idea for those that haven't made it. Go back through the self-assessment, and I think you'll be able to, if you're being honest with yourself, you'll be able to see where you've fallen short and where you need to put your efforts for your next application, if that's what you decide to do. So yeah. So unfortunately, you're not going to get like a, hey, you answered this question poorly, or hey, you didn't have enough hours as a volunteer, or something like that. It's not going to be so simple. But if you're honest with yourself, you should be able to see which area that you need to beef up in your application.
Yeah, absolutely. And if folks are honest with themselves, and they look at, did you put in an application and that's as far as you got? Well, let's go back and dissect your application and go on that self-assessment tool. If you made it a little further, okay, how did you do in your interview? Did you feel like you answered the questions well? Did you fumble through it? Were you unprepared? Things like that. And if you're honest with yourself, you can figure that out. Some people ask me about their history and their background. We as recruiters understand that everyone makes mistakes in their lives. It's certainly important, and I think something that we stress all the time is integrity. So keeping your integrity throughout the process and being honest and upfront, and what you've learned from your mistakes are more important than never having made a mistake in your life. So yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head with that stuff.
Yeah, and I agree with what you're saying there too. I always say, if there's something you're worried about me asking you in an interview, then get really cozy with that way before we ever talk about it, right? I want you to own that, whatever it was, whatever mistake you've made in your past. I want you to own it and reflect on what you've learned from it and how it's changed the way you operate or the way you approach whatever that situation was. And that way, all of a sudden, it's almost like you've created like a positive learning story out of something that you thought was just going to be a mark against you or something like that, right? So now you've spun it into something like, yeah, I made a mistake, and you've now just demonstrated that you can own up to your mistakes. You spoke to your own integrity without really trying, and then you've also, it just, people respect that, so and appreciate that.
Sure. 18 is minimum age to apply. Yes, that has not changed. 18 has always been the minimum age to apply. Do we recruit that young? We're recruiting for positions of all kinds. So 18 years is the minimum. If a person around that age is very competitive, depending on their background, they will not be discriminated against because they're 18, and that is the minimum. Do I see a lot of 18-year-olds getting hired as provincial constables? I can say that I don't see a lot of that, given that there's probably more the rare exception that a person of a young age is as competitive as, say, maybe someone 4 years older than them, just by given life experience, employment, leadership, and things of that nature. So hope that answers that question.
And I see Carl's asking about if you're looking to volunteer and help out, would the auxiliary program be a good option? And absolutely. So there is an application process for the auxiliary program. So it's not just like sign up and you're in. It is competitive as well. However, we have auxiliary units at I think 52 detachments ish across the province. So there's probably a unit close to you. And if that's something that you're really interested in, I would definitely encourage it. I never did it myself, but when I was working for the program, I really dove into the whole auxiliary world, and it's a really great group of volunteers. They are constantly making us look good because they're out there being the face of the OPP at all of the community events, whether it's toy drives or whether it's, whatever it is, a festive ride, they'll be there. And they're also out there in cruisers with our officers. And sometimes they're the only backup that our officers will have, sometimes on a night shift in some cases. So it's a very, you can make of it what you want. You could be the person that's at every community event, and you could be the person that's going on a lot of ride-alongs and helping out that way and doing parades. So definitely encourage you to check out the auxiliary program. If you feel like it's a little bit soon for you to apply and you want to build up your skill set a bit. And it's going to definitely let you know whether that a policing career is for you or not, because you're going to be right there in the front seat of that cruiser, seeing everything firsthand. So
yeah, and just to top up on auxiliary, I love the auxiliary program. It's a real feeder into our succession planning for officers on the road. And when you become an auxiliary member, you're ticking a lot of boxes, right? It's your community service, it's your motivation, it's your understanding of the daily operations of a police officer. And you do receive training. You receive some use of force options because you are that second officer in the car with a full uniform member. So we do all sorts of events with our auxiliaries. Recently, I went to a maple syrup festival, and normally we would have 4 to 6 auxiliary members doing some foot patrol through the festival, being extra eyes and ears for the officers. They're allowed to drive our cars, and I really enjoy them. My husband is a staff sergeant with the OPP, and he started as an auxiliary member. And I like to use him as an example because on his first attempt at becoming a uniform officer, he was turned down at the final review stage. So he didn't make it. He got the cut. He applied for auxiliary, joined the auxiliary, really got some firsthand information, and made contacts with officers. And many years later, I shouldn't say many years later, he was an auxiliary for a year, and then he got hired as a constable, and he has moved through the ranks up to staff sergeant at this point. So it really is a good start.
Yeah, absolutely. And every time I hear someone talking about the auxiliary program, some veteran officer will step forward and be like, I was an auxiliary, and they absolutely love it. Like they really look back fondly on that experience. So like you said, you're going to build, if you do a good job, then you're going to build references as well from a very selfish application standpoint. Okay, where are we at here? I see one. Hey guys, can an Indian international student join the OPP? So you would need to be a citizen or a permanent resident, but as long as you can tick those boxes, 100%. We are definitely looking for people from all communities, because obviously those are the communities we serve. So okay. And someone was asking, like, how do you know what detachments to select when you're looking to say, here are my 6 choices of preferred postings? So I think there was something to do with units in that comment too. So let's be clear: we're applying to be a frontline police officer. From once you're on the road and you've learned the job, then you'd start looking at other units if that's what you're looking to do. But we're definitely hiring for frontline police officers. So you wouldn't apply to any units directly. You would apply to the OPP as a constable, and then you would select where you'd prefer to be posted. And we're doing a really great job. Our teams at headquarters is doing a great job of getting people where they want to be for the most part. It's in like the high 80s%, I think, to get people one of their top choices. And you can do a search on the website, and you can type in, you can look up the detachment locations, and that'll give you an idea to see what's local or what's in the area that you want to be, or if you want to be adventurous and head up to Woodbury territory up in the north, and explore all the all the things that the north has to offer. I know when I was looking to get on, I think I had gone to the little website of every tiny little town that was a duration posting, and just daydreamed about what it would be like to start a new life there. So yeah, so there's lots of information. You'll be able to see where our detachments are, and then basically you'll select 6. and then we'll do our best if you're successful to place you there.
Yeah, and I do recommend, like you're on OPP.ca and you use the search tool there. You can look up like detachment finder, go through the detachments. When you find something that's in an area that you're interested in going to, have a look at their action plan. Learn what each detachment is all about. You'll quickly see that some detachments serve a lot of small communities, and they do a lot of combination of proactive policing, whether it be traffic enforcement or education, but they also do a lot of general law enforcement when it comes to these communities and responding to calls for service. Now, if you looked at a detachment that is more of a highway safety division area, predominantly, then you're not going to be doing as well-rounded of policing. You may be focusing more on the traffic stuff, which is really up a lot of people's alley. But I encourage you to do your homework. Do not pick a detachment that you're going to be unhappy at, because we are doing our best to place you in your top 6. And if you haven't done your research, that's going to be reflected on yourself. So yes, you can also make contacts. Once you've decided where you want to go, there's no hurt in reaching out and making a contact at one of these detachments. For sure, for myself, people make a lot of questions pointed my way. I know a lot about the Northeast, but I can also find a contact and set somebody up to answer some more questions. But as Sergeant Keys said, it's pretty darn easy to Google an area now and find out if you're interested in local athletics or whatever, things that perhaps you have kids that the kind of schools and things like that. Those things you can probably find pretty easily at your fingertips these days. And if something comes more specific, then we can help you find a contact to answer the questions.
And I'm seeing Shane's saying what a lot of people don't want to say. Shane's nervous about the shuttle run. Yeah, unless you're already like a runner, I hear you, because I was not a runner when I started this, and it was definitely intimidating. But what I say to people that are really nervous about the physical part of it, that piece is like, you have the most control over that piece, is what I would say to you there. So if you're just starting to look into a career in policing and you're going to get spooked by the shuttle run, that's going to happen, and you're going to be fine. Like, all you have to do is put the work in, and you have full control over that. So don't let the shuttle run scare you. That was the last thing that I thought I would be doing before I decided to apply as a police officer, was doing the shuttle run. So yeah, just you can put in the work. There's a lot of resources to help out. We've even got tips on the website, and we've got videos on YouTube about fitness and preparing. And it's not something that's going to hold you back. It's just going to take some time. I see someone else was talking about being an international student. So if you don't have permanent residency yet, that is a prerequisite. So you would need to be a citizen or a permanent resident to be able to apply. So I couldn't really help you with that, but I'm sure there's lots of resources if that's something that you're looking to do. But you definitely would need to meet those requirements.
I seen a question about meeting the requirements for eyesight, and should they wait to apply? You need to meet the requirements as they are. So if you don't meet the requirements, there's not much sense in applying, because you're not going to pass on to the next stage. So I personally, I had laser eye surgery 20 years ago, and I got on the job. It only takes a couple of weeks to be cleared by your optometrist afterwards, and that you'll pass all your tests. So I personally would wait until you meet the requirements.
I see someone. I don't know why I'm reading a question when I don't have an answer to it there, Navdeep. But your question is about those prep mentoring sessions for the physical testing, and I know that there have been talks about obtaining the equipment and running some of our sessions. I know that our highway safety division has been looking at that. I don't know that there's anything booked yet, but keep an eye on the opp.ca/events page. And you should start seeing upcoming prep mentoring sessions in the near future. How is the shuttle run test done now? I know it's changed since COVID. So yeah, there has been a change, and I think the change is that we are accepting shuttle run videos. So you'll be given very specific instructions on how to lay out your shuttle run and how you mark it and how you set up your camera, all of that, so that we can review these and ensure that you're meeting the requirements. And there's all kinds of details on opp.ca about the shuttle run as well. We have you can download the Leisure shuttle run as well, and I'm sure one of our recruiters, Prash, will have lots of videos. I think he's got some videos on YouTube, and he talks a lot about fitness. But it's all being done through sending in shuttle run videos now, and we lay it out so that you know exactly how to do that.
Yeah, there's a step-by-step instruction that comes with it, and I think it even has a YouTube link for some demonstrations. Someone asked, is OPC a requirement regardless of post-secondary? Yes, it is. You have to be a graduate of the Ontario Police College to be a police officer in Ontario.
Yep, any police service. So there's one about applying, but their spouse is in the military, and would that hinder their chances with employment? So what I'm thinking you're getting at is if you're being if your spouse is being redeployed to different places, is that going to affect you? I mean, it would. You do have, given that the OPP is a large organization, we do have a lot of detachments that are nearby to military bases. But I mean, you still would be limited, and you know, it would be a challenge. But we have a lot of folks on the job that have spouses in the military, and they make it work. And you know, we like to keep people. You know, if you're in a location, they like you to commit to sticking around for 2 years. But there are, like I said, lots of detachments near military bases, so it's still doable, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I see someone asking about civilian employment in regards to forensics and background. All of our forensic ident people are police officers. So you have to become an officer first with the OPP, do all the exact basic constable training, and be a first class officer, which takes 3 years before you go into specialties. So we train our forensic ident people after they're already a police officer. So there's no civilian jobs as a forensic ident officer. There are some city services or regional services that hire civilians, but the OPP does not.
I'm seeing Dave's asking about his qualifications and if they would. I don't know if you're asking Dave about a role as a communications operator, like a dispatcher, or but I would say that any leadership experience that you're talking about there as a team leader is going to be it's going to be an asset to you, whether you're applying for a civilian or a uniform position.
Absolutely.
Okay, we're just reading here, folks. Is volunteering a requirement to join the OPP, or does it just help with the application? Okay, so what I would say is you're being hired to be a police officer and hopefully be a meaningful part of your community that you're going to be serving. So I would say that we like to see community involvement and some sort of how do you make your community better? So we recognize that people have full-time jobs and that they have children and then they have, all these other obligations and that people are very busy. But we are looking for people that have some sort of involvement in their community. And it would be nice to have a pattern of it to show that that's the type of person that you are. It doesn't mean that you have to be, give up every night and every weekend to a volunteer position. It's just knowing that we're going to be hiring someone that's going to be a part of the community and is going to engage with the community in a meaningful way.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are a service, right? Long gone is the term police force. We are a police service, and we provide a service to our communities. And we need to know that it is in your lifestyle, that you are a person who gives back to your community, that you are involved, and that it's something that not only do you do, but you do so because it's enjoyable, and that it's rewarding without getting paid for your time. Volunteering comes in all sorts of areas of your life that you can incorporate it into, and everybody is busy. We understand that. I still volunteer probably a couple hundred hours a winter by incorporating. I go to the hockey rink for my kids' hockey. I have to be there anyways, so I'm either helping in an on-ice capacity or I'm managing a team. All those positions that are, they're not glorified type of volunteering, but it's helping kids, it's helping the community, giving back. If you're that person who shovels your elderly neighbor's driveway, you know what? That's giving back to your community. It doesn't necessarily have to be join big brothers and big sisters and take on a little. It doesn't have to be as formalized as that. So I know when people say they're busy, I get it. I don't think I've ever been more busy in my life than juggling 2-shift work schedules, children, dogs, and I still manage to give back hundreds of hours a year. So I think everybody can do it.
Yeah, and we had another question about volunteering, and I think that kind of really answers it. It's like, what type of volunteer work should a candidate do to stand out in an interview? So I think what Sergeant Woodbury has said is, you're involved in something that you're going to be a part of and you have an interest in anyway. Your kids are involved. Like, pick something that you're going to like. Don't just pick something that we are going to like, because it's going to be pretty obvious, that it's not something you're really into. We want a genuine interest in it. So, but I mean, like, if you're looking for stuff that's going to give you experience to speak to, then like, obviously we deal with a lot of mental health stuff. So if there's an opportunity to volunteer there, like, you could look at it that way. But if I was looking at getting out there and volunteering, I would want to find something like, where do I fit in? What do I have to offer? And what do I like? And that's what I would kind of go for. There was a big question about us responding to calls alone, and how that might affect this one of our guests' decision to apply or not. And yeah, so what I would say about that one, about going to calls alone, there are types of calls that we just would not. So the calls that have a heightened level of danger or risk to them, generally those calls, in a best case scenario, we don't go to alone. We have some policies in place, and we try our best not to go to those alone. Obviously, there's going to be circumstances where it's going to happen. There's going to be circumstances where we're shorthanded at times, or where it's just not practical to wait. But there are definitely some serious policies in place that where certain types of calls where there's going to be more of a risk that we're doubled up. But I mean, we've all been to calls that have seemed like one thing and then turned into a bigger thing when we get there. Happens all the time. And it is a part of the job.
Yeah, for sure. As police officers, we're reevaluating our situations nonstop when you're going to an investigation. You could be at something simple that evolves and more players come into it, or emotions get high, things like that. So you may be at something on your own that was a barking dog complaint that turns into a neighbor dispute, that turns into a fist fight and people rolling on the lawn. That's the nature of our job. We're there to, like I said, reevaluate, know your surroundings, not only know your abilities, but also be very familiar with your own limitations. As a police officer, there is always an option to disengage in certain situations and regroup and get back into the situation when it's appropriate. So it's a part of our job, our career path, and we're there to help people. And sometimes that means that you're going to be helping on your own.
Okay. Farhan is saying, where do we begin the application process? Like we've mentioned a few times, the opp.ca/careers page. If you go to that page, you'll see a breakdown of the entire process, and it's that whole thing I tell my kids: how do you eat an elephant? Right? Just don't get overwhelmed by the immense size of this process, because it's different from a lot of jobs. It's a different application process, and obviously for very but pick it off one step at a time and go through that process. It's well laid out for you on the website, and it'll direct you on how to get started.
Someone asked, they were unsuccessful, but they were recommended for auxiliary. So not everybody's offered auxiliary, so they must have thought that you had some good potential and that you could come up to that next level. After your 1 year, you can reapply, and you do start over with a new application. But you'll have grown from that time period of the 1 year, and hopefully joining the auxiliary will help you just take yourself to that next level.
Okay. Okay, Chris is asking. It's a high school teacher, and he's looking to see. He understands that the OPP does not require post-secondary. So yeah, we get this question a lot, and I know with that announcement with the tuition, there was mention of, it almost sounded as if we were lowering requirements, which grade 12 has been the minimum requirement for education for as long as I've known it, and it's basically you're like I said, there's about 10 areas of assessment, and you've got to show us that you're competitive by having a good balance of all these things. So if your life experience and job experience and whatever military experience is very, very valuable, and you've got a lot of great experience, it's going to offset the fact that maybe you had your grade 12 and didn't go to post-secondary. So it's just weighing out all of these different categories of assessment. It's not just based on education alone. And then okay.
Where do the auxiliaries do their training? They do that in Aurelia. That's at our provincial academy.
Minimum academic requirement as a Quebec student. So it's the same application form, whether you're in Ontario or Quebec, and it's the same requirements. So you'd have to have the equivalent of your grade 12 or post-secondary. And we're talking about OPP bound. Yeah, we have been we've been looking at starting to run some of those types of programs again. That we have been in talks about that. So keep checking back. I'm not saying that we're announcing anything anytime soon, but it's definitely something that a lot of people found beneficial, and that we're looking at doing again, those types of programs to give you a bit of experience in what it's like to be a recruit for a couple of days.
Someone asked if they should call a detachment to get more points. No.
I would never publicly put that out on the internet.
don't blanketly start calling detachments. That's not going to get you any extra points.
Yeah.
And someone else asked about applying to Caledon detachment position. Again, we don't hire. You don't apply to a detachment. You're applying to frontline policing, and you're giving your 6 preferred postings. Okay, you can't apply to exactly a specific position.
Well, I mean, the questions are coming fast and furious. If you're
Yeah, wow,
seeing
guys.
our eyes going sideways and the awkward silence for a moment, it's because the questions are coming in with it, which is great. So keep them coming.
Okay, someone asked if they have to be present physically in Canada for the kind of like pre-screening and initial stages. No, not necessarily. I've interviewed folks who are looking to come back to Ontario or to come to Ontario, and they've already got Canadian citizenship. And I've interviewed them from other parts of the world. So there's majority of the process is online. Yes, as you progress, there is a portion of psych testing that's done in person, but you can get quite a ways in before you have to be in person.
I see a question for the application process. Do we have to mention a job that we had only worked for one day? Yeah, you do. Because I want to know about that day. Now I really want to know about that day. I've had one of those jobs, and I worked at a recycling factory for, well, I'm going to say a half day until they tried to ask me to go into a trash compactor to unjam it. And there were rats crawling over my feet. And I was like, okay, I'm done. But I'm pretty sure I had to talk about that in my interview. So definitely we want to know about that one day, because that sounds more interesting than the one you were at for a year, because who knows, right? Why were you there for the day?
Co-op positions. Someone has a question about for post-secondary students. Yeah, detachments are taking co-op students all the time. In a temporary position I filled in for, I hired like 3 or 4. I say hired, but they're co-op positions. Students to be in the detachment. Now, of course, those students are doing more of an administrative type of co-op. In those roles, but that's definitely something that is not usually reached out to the police by a student. It's usually the university or the college who reaches out to an administrative person at one of the detachments.
I see Jesse's asking if it's possible to get hired as an undercover officer at the beginning of the career, or is that for experienced officers? So I definitely heard stories from like the generation before me of coming right out of police college, and just because of they looked like they were in high school still, or whatever the case was, they were thrown into these. But and I'm absolutely no expert in undercover or the drug enforcement world, but I'm going to say that there's a lot of risks involved and a lot of training involved in doing that type of work, and yeah, it's going to be something that you're on the job. You've already learned how to be a police officer and how to handle yourself before you're even looking at any of that stuff. And don't let that discourage anyone that's just excited about their future goals and where they want to end up in policing, because that first 3 to 5 years is going to fly by, and you're going to learn so much that you're going to kind of be, when you're done your 5 years, it's going to feel like you just started, right? And you're going to realize how much you really did need to learn. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of opportunities in all kinds of different specialty units, and undercover is one of them. That's super interesting, and you don't hear a lot about, obviously, for obvious reasons. But you want to get your basics under your under control before you look at any specialization.
Someone asked if they should do a transit special constable to get more experience before applying. That's a hard question because I don't know your personal situation. If you have 0 work experience under your belt, I would suggest that getting some work experience in any area would be helpful. But specific to a transit special constable before applying, that's going to be up to you and your personal circumstances. It's certainly not a bad choice, but it's going to depend on you specifically.
I'm going to pick off a couple easy ones here, Kelly. Where can I find out about constable salaries? So opp.ca/careers. There's a whole section that'll talk about benefits and pay. Do you need to have any sort of firearms license to apply to the auxiliary program? No. I mean, if you do, that's great. Like, experience with firearms is just another thing I would mention if you're applying. However, we will give you firearms training, and you won't you won't be qualified to be carrying them outside of your duties as an auxiliary. So it's not like once you become an auxiliary, you've got a firearms license. Yeah. And okay, well, let's see here. So for the question about salary, from the website here, recruit constable salary, you're starting at $58,522. After you've successfully completed your initial training, you're going to jump up to $74,617.00. And then once you make it to your first class constable, 42 months, you're up to 102,630. So there you go. That's what you'd be looking at. But I definitely encourage you to go on and take a look at all the benefits. I mean, that's not why you want to get into a job like this, because it's a very specific type of job that's going to require a lot of you in ways that other jobs wouldn't. So I wouldn't be doing it just for that. But I mean, make no mistake, we've all got families and we work for a reason to be able to support them. Yeah, and I can't complain from my perspective. Growing up the way I did, my benefits and my pay is great. And it's definitely an attractive part of the job. But you wouldn't survive in it, I don't think, if that was the only reason you were jumping in.
Awesome. Again, another question about Sigma. Yep, everybody writes the Sigma test. That's part of the psych testing. Next one was, do you recommend police foundations with a college? Again, everybody's post-secondary choices are their own. Is one specific program better than another? No, not necessarily. I myself took police foundations at a college level, and decided that I wanted to further my education, and switched over to like a bridged program with the university. So everybody has their own path. If you have something that you could use to fall back on in a career planning type of manner, then you choose. Maybe you're interested in computers or business or whatever it may be, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with the Police Foundations program, and it just happens going to need to be on an individual basis.
I saw a question about the auxiliary program again. Can you send in an application after the program application date has expired? And I'm not familiar with an expiry date on the applications, unless they've changed how they are doing that. Because when I was the coordinator, we were accepting applications all year round. And then there were specific dates for training dates, but we were definitely accepting them all year round. So if I'm wrong there, definitely check out opp.ca/careers, and there's a whole section on the auxiliary program with all those details as well. But my understanding is that you can send your application in at any time.
Yeah, and maybe that might be confused with the REACH application.
Yes.
That's closed for now because we have enough applicants and they have to be sorted through. But as far as my understanding is for auxiliary, accepting all year round, but the training is only offered at certain points throughout the year. So that may depend on if someone can get hired in a timely fashion for auxiliary or not. I know this is another question from Nick asking when we think calls will go out for the next class. I don't have that at my fingertips. Obviously, the next class doesn't start for a little while, so we'll be doing our very best to fill that class to 100% capacity. So if that's what you're waiting on, please be patient.
That's a good position to be in, Nick. I can tell he's chomping at the bit right now.
Absolutely.
And Kelly, do you remember when you got your call?
I think I had about 2 weeks notice.
Okay.
Yeah,
And do you remember that moment?
Oh my God. 100% remember that. I was living in an apartment, got that phone call. They said, Chaplow, I had to and this will date me. I had to like turn a map over to figure out where that was. And then, you know, I knew I was hired. I knew I was going, and started calling my family. It was awesome. Great feeling.
I was working as a civilian, like for the G8 summit, and I was sitting in this meeting with some inspectors, and then all of a sudden my phone started ringing, and I was just embarrassed, and I was trying to like silence it in my pocket, and then one of the inspectors turned to me and said, "What are you doing? Answer your phone." So they must have known something was up, because I had no idea it was coming.
Yeah.
And then they sent me out of the room, and then I came back in, and then I got high fives from everyone. And I was all excited because I got Aurelia, which is my hometown. So I thought I had won. And then I started bragging that I got my hometown, and then people were like, "Oh, really?
Oh.
Well, it wasn't the sought after posting back then, but
yes,
it ended up being great learning spot.
Yeah,
I think we're almost out of time, though, Kelly.
We
It seemed
are.
I was thinking, how are we going to fill an hour? But
yeah, so was I. I'll try to do a quick one. Someone asked about their OACP certificate. What's the timeline? We do not require the OACP certificate. So if it's going to expire, that's fine by the OPP. It's not a requirement for your application with us. Shift scheduling, and what does that look like for an officer? How long are shifts? Well, they do vary a little bit. For the most part, detachments run 12-hour shifts. If you can imagine, we're 24-hour service everywhere. So all the hours of the day and night have to be covered. A popular one is a 5-5-4 schedule. You work a combination of days and nights for 5 shifts. You're off for 4, you work another 5, and then you're off for 5. So that essentially turns into 2 weekends of working and 2 weekends off. So you can plan your life around those things. But essentially, as a police officer, your 12-hour shift may turn into 13, 14, or 15 hours. That's the nature of the beast, but you're well compensated and your days off are very nice.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed that 5-4 schedule, because like, you felt like as soon as you were off work, you were on vacation, like every block off. Like it felt like that. And then you could go grocery shopping when nobody was there, and you could, you know what I mean? You could, if the kids are off in the summer, you could go to wherever, like, you know, when non-busy times. And so that was nice. But yeah, that was a really good schedule for sure.
Yeah, one of my favorites. Yeah. There's lots of questions. I'm sorry, guys. I know we're not going to get to them all. Someone asking, coming from the U.S. As a citizen, is there a cutoff for age for our departments? No age restrictions for our police services, but you do have to be a permanent resident or citizen of Canada. Someone is finishing college in 2024. When should they apply? Typically, you know, we're anywhere from 2 months to 6 months in the process. So wherever that fits into your life, it's a lengthy process. So take your time, do your due diligence with it. Yeah. Do we want to do one last question and we'll end it there?
Sure. What do we got?
Try to answer somebody.
And for anyone that doesn't have their question answered, please feel free to send an email to uniformrecruitment@opp.ca, or tune in next Tuesday and we'll be doing another Ask Me Anything session.
I actually think we got to a whole lot of them. I think we'll end it there. Thanks everyone for joining us. Thanks for your great questions, and hope to see folks on another one. And all the best to those who are already started in the process.
Yeah, good luck, everyone.